Recall from our week 4 discussion about lists, the fact that a list can contain other lists. So this list here, nums, if we ask how many items does the list nums contain? Well, it contains overall 9 integers, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. However, when we print len of nums, we get 5. Now, what len does, it counts the number of items in a list, not any number of sub-items, sub-sub-items, or sub-sub-sub-sub-sub-items, right? And there are indeed only 5 items in the list num, right? What are they? So this is item number 1, which is a list contains 2 integers, 1 and 2. This is item number 2, again 2 integers, 3 and 4. Item number 3, item number 4, and item number 5 only has 1 integer in it, right? So the length of nums is actually 5, not 9. And again, recall that you can do sublisting for as long as you like. The next question to ask is, well, we know how to loop over irregular lists that do not include other lists, right? We can simply say for item in collection in list. So how would we print out every single sub whatever item of this list? So how many times do we have to go into a sub list? If we simply try to print nums, we see that it is printing a list of lists, right? So the overall list num contains 5 other lists, 5 other items that are all lists. And if we do what I just said, if we do for item in nums, print item, we do not get the numbers themselves. We get the 5 elements, which in each of them is in fact a list. So we get list number 1, list number 2, list number 3, and so forth, which is slightly better than this list of lists, but we cannot access individual integers with a normal for loop, right? Because if the normal for loop only goes 1 step deep, and this list is 2 steps deep. We need what's called nested loops to loop over nested lists or other data types. And this is the structure of nested loops. And again, I hope at this point you are quite familiar and quite comfortable with a regular collection controlled loop. Now, definition. A nested loop is simply a loop, just the same as the outer loop, but it occurs within an outer loop, right? So the outer loop is exactly what it's called, an outer loop, and an outer loop can have 1 or more nested loops. The structure is like this. So it's for, right? It's a for loop. The first iterable variable, whatever you want to name it, in the outer loop. So in our case, this would be nums, right? And optionally, you may do something here in this outer loop, but it is actually quite often that you don't do anything at this step. You simply want to go 1 step deeper and then do something. So that's why this step is actually optional. So then notice that this for loop is indented. It is within the outer for loop. And now we say for second iterable variable in nested loop, and we will do something. Now it is very important that you do not repeat the variables as you go nesting in your loops. For example, if here you say for, again, the first iterable variable, you're going to introduce some errors and faults in your program. Each loop has its own variable that is referenced within the loop, and it must not be reused from outer loops. Here's how we would actually print the numbers 1 through 9. We have our list, nums, right? It's a list of lists. And as before, we say for item in nums, and we now know that that gives us the individual sublists, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So 5 sublists. And now, so notice, like I said here, we don't really want to do anything before this other for loop because, well, we don't care about it. We simply want to go immediately 1 step deeper. And now we say for inner item, in item, because now this variable item, as we're iterating over nums, item holds each individual sublist. So item is in fact a list. And we say for inner item in item, And again, notice it would be a mistake to say for item in item. In fact, that would be a pretty bad error. And we will print the inner item. So that's how nested loops work. And after executing this, we see that we are in fact dealing with individual integers and no longer with lists. Now, about the flow of control within nested loops. For each iteration of the outer loop, so of this loop, the entirety of the inner loop gets executed. What does that mean exactly? Let's consider this example. We have a couple of lists. We have numList, which is a list of 1, 2, and 3 integers, and we have AlphaList, a list of A, B, and C. So in order to understand what that exactly means, for each iteration of the outer loop, the entirety of the inner loop gets executed. We will do this example. For num in numList, right, we're iterating over these, we will print the num, we'll print the item, and then for each letter in the AlphaList, we will print the letter. Now pay close attention to the order in which these items get printed and in which the order in which the loops here are executed. So as I said, for every iteration of the outer loop, so right now we start the outer loop with the item 1, right, the 0th element in the list. So we print 1. And then we print A, B, C. So while we're still in the outer loop and it's looking at the item of value 1, it gets entire AlphaList. So the entirety of the inner loop is executed. So that's why we get all A, B, and C after 1. Then again, when this is done, we return the control to the outer loop. And at this point, we're at 2. So here's what you get: 1 ABC, 2 ABC, 3 ABC, and so forth. It is very important that you understand this, and because it's quite easy to kind of lose track of what gets executed when and like what gets control at any particular time. Now, a word about naming convention. These we just looked at collection controlled lists, right? Collection controlled loops, sorry. And if we are dealing with count controlled loops, there is actually a convention how you should be naming the variables. The convention is I, J, K, and then you go down the alphabet. Why do we start at I? Actually, I is the convention, and then it just goes from there. The reason I is chosen is because, well, if we go back one slide, it's called iterating variable, right? Iterative variable. That's why I. So it is quite common for I in range. It's your count controlled for loop. So for the first variable, for the very outer loop, it is I. You always use I just because, again, convention, you should stick with conventions unless you have a very good reason not to. Then, if you have a nested loop under I, the next variable you choose is J. So for I in range of, so now you will see this is not only a list of lists. This is a list of lists of lists. Look, this is a triply nested list. The list nums has only one item, which is a list. Now that list has many items, each of which is a list, right? We have, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through 9, and now we have 0. And what happens here is we first iterate through the nums, which has a single item in it, the list. Then we iterate over this nested list, which has, again, which in this case has multiple, which has 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. And then finally, looking at these small sublists of 2 numbers, we need to get to the k variable in order to print them. So this here is a doubly nested loop. This is a triple nested loop, and sometimes you get to those. And of course, the execution here is cubic, right? If for normal loop you need only n iterations. If it's nested, you need n squared. If it's a triple loop, then you need n cubed, or cubic execution. So that is how nesting works. Again, if you have nested lists or nested anything, you will need to use nested loops, and it is fairly common to use double nested loops in some applications of your programs.